Captain Jin Park sat in the cold metal chair and watched another world die on the big screen. The Zephyrian ships moved like black insects across the planet's surface. They were eating everything. Buildings, trees, people. It did not matter to them. "We must follow proper procedures," said Counselor Thys. The reptilian alien's voice was calm, as if they were talking about lunch instead of millions of deaths. "The Environmental Impact Committee needs more time to study the effects of military action." Jin's hands turned into fists. He had been sitting in these meetings for 3 months. 3 months of talk. While the Zephyrians ate 3 whole worlds. The aliens loved their committees, and their rules, and their endless meetings. Admiral Vex Tar stood up from his chair. The blue-skinned Centauri looked tired. "My fleet is ready to move. We just need the Council's approval." "Approval takes time," said the Altarian delegate. Her voice sounded like singing, but Jin was sick of hearing it. "We must consider all options. War is not the only answer." Jin wanted to laugh, but it would not be funny. The Zephyrians had never talked to anyone. They just ate everything in their path. But the aliens in this room kept pretending they could solve this with words. On the screen, evacuation ships tried to escape from the dying world. Zephyrian fighters caught them easily. Jin watched the ships explode in silent flashes of light. More people dead, while the Council talked. "Perhaps we should try sending another diplomatic message," suggested the vegan representative. His large black eyes blinked slowly. "Violence only creates more violence." Jin stood up so fast his chair fell over. The sound echoed in the quiet room. All the alien eyes turned to look at him. "How many messages have you sent?" Jin asked. His voice was too loud in the fancy council chamber. "How many worlds need to die while you write pretty letters to monsters that don't read them?" Counselor Thys made a disapproving sound. "Captain Park, please control yourself. We understand human emotions can be overwhelming, but we must think logically." "Logically?" Jin pointed at the screen, where another evacuation ship died. "What's logical about watching genocide while you debate proper paperwork?" The Altarian delegate's singing voice got colder. "We cannot act without proper authority. The Galactic Constitution requires approval from at least 7 major species before any military action." "And how long will that take?" Jin asked. "The standard time for constitutional review is 6 to 8 weeks, said a small alien Jin did not recognize, "assuming no amendments or challenges are filed." Jin stared at the creature. 6 weeks, while they eat more worlds. "Better to be careful than sorry," said another voice from the crowd of aliens. Something broke inside Jin's chest. He had spent his whole career following orders and respecting authority. He believed in the system. But watching these aliens debate, while people died, was too much. "You know what?" Jin said. He could feel his face getting hot. "Fine. I'll do it myself." Jin. Fine." The room went completely silent. Every alien stared at him, like he had grown a second head. "Excuse me?" Counselor Thys asked. "You heard me," Jin said. He was already walking toward the door. "I'll do it myself. You can keep having your meetings and your committees and your constitutional reviews. I'm done waiting." "Wait." Admiral Vex Tar stood up. "Captain Park, you cannot take military action without authorization. It's against galactic law." Jin stopped at the door and turned around. "Watch me." He walked out. Behind him, the aliens started talking all at once. Their voices mixed together in a noise of confusion and anger. Jin's boots clicked on the metal floors as he walked through the halls of Nexus Prime. The space station was huge, with representatives from hundreds of worlds. But they were all the same. They loved rules more than results. He reached his small quarters and sat down at his communication console. For a moment, he just stared at the blank screen. What was he doing? He was one person with no ship and no army. But then he thought about the evacuation ships exploding. He thought about the families on those ships. He thought about the Zephyrians moving toward more worlds while the council debated. Jin turned on his communication system. It was not the official military network. It was something more personal. A network humans had built to stay in touch across the galaxy. "This is Jin Park," he said into the microphone. "I need to talk to every human who can hear this message." The response was faster than he expected. Voices started coming through his speakers. Human voices from ships and stations and colonies across known space. "Jin? What's wrong?" That was Sarah Kim. She was an engineer working on a mining station near Vega. "The council won't stop the Zephyrians," Jin said. "They're going to let them eat the galaxy while they have meetings." "So what do we do?" asked another voice. "Chen Wei, a pilot working cargo, runs in the outer systems." Jin took a deep breath. "We stop them ourselves." The communication channel went quiet for a moment. Then voices started coming through again. Not asking if it was possible or if it was legal. Just asking how. That was the difference, Jin realized. Humans did not spend months debating whether something should be done. They figured out how to do it. "I'll need ships," Jin said. "Whatever we can get. And weapons. And people crazy enough to fight an enemy that scares the whole galaxy." "You've got my cargo hauler," Chen said immediately. "She's not much, but she flies." "I can modify some mining equipment," Sarah added. "Make it more explosive." More voices joined in. Humans from across the galaxy offering whatever they had. No committees. No votes. No constitutional reviews. Just people ready to act. Jin looked at his communication console and smiled for the first time in months. Maybe one person could not stop the Zephyrians. But he was not just one person anymore. Outside his window, the lights of Nexus Prime sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere in those lights, aliens were still having meetings about the proper way to respond to genocide. But the humans were done talking. Jin's quarters became a command center overnight. His small table was covered with star charts, ship specs, and handwritten notes. The official galactic forces would have laughed at his setup. No holographic displays, no quantum computers, just paper and old-fashioned planning. Dr. Lee Min-jun arrived first. The xenobiologist looked tired from his long trip, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "I brought everything I have on Zephyrian biology," he said, dropping a bag full of data tablets on Jin's table. "Official research?" Jin asked. Lee shook his head. "Personal observations. I've been studying them for 2 years without telling anyone. The official researchers are too scared to get close enough to learn anything useful." Lee well. And Lee well. Lee well. Lee well. And that was typical, Jin thought. The aliens wanted perfect safety before they would even look at the enemy. Humans just got closer and took notes. Sarah Kim showed up next through Jin's door. The engineer had grease under her fingernails and excitement in her voice. "I've been thinking about those mining charges we use to break asteroids," she said. "With some modifications, they could punch through Zephyrian ship hulls. Can you make enough of them?" Jin asked. "That's the beautiful part," Sarah grinned. "Every mining operation in human space uses the same basic design. I can send modification instructions to 50 different stations. We'll have thousands of improvised weapons in a week." Chen Wei was the last to arrive. The pilot looked like he had not slept in days. "I've got 12 cargo ships. Willing to help," he said. "Not military vessels, just working ships with crews who are tired of watching the aliens do nothing." Jin stared at his team. 3 people and 12 cargo ships against an enemy that had eaten 3 worlds. The Galactic Council would call it suicide. "What do we know about Zephyrian tactics?" Jin asked Lee. The scientist pulled up files on his tablet, They fight like a hive mind. Perfect coordination. No individual thinking. Every ship follows the same patterns. That sounds dangerous, Chen said. It is, Li agreed. But it's also a weakness. They can't adapt to anything they haven't seen before. Every military force in the galaxy uses standard tactics, so the Zephyrians have learned to counter them all. Sarah leaned forward. But they've never fought cargo pilots using mining explosives. Exactly, Li said. Their hive mind can predict logical military responses. But what we're planning isn't logical. Jin spread a star chart across his table. The Zephyrians are moving toward the Kepler system next. 3 colonies. About 2 million people total. When will they arrive? Chen asked. Galactic intelligence estimates 6 days, Jin said. Which means the Council will still be debating when the attack begins. So we have 6 days to get there first, Sarah said. Jin nodded. Can we do it? Chen studied the chart. If we skip the normal cargo routes and cut through the asteroid fields, yes, it'll be rough on the ships, but possible. What about weapons? Jin asked Sarah. I can have the modified mining charges ready in 3 days, she said. The real problem is delivery systems. Cargo ships aren't built for combat. We'll have to improvise, Jin said. Over the next 4 days, something amazing happened. The human network came alive in ways Jin had never seen. Mining stations across the galaxy started producing modified explosives. Cargo pilots changed their routes to meet at rally points. Engineers shared modification plans that turned peaceful ships into improvised weapons. The aliens noticed, of course. Jin's communication console buzzed with calls from Galactic Forces commanders. Admiral Vextar called 3 times, demanding to know what the humans were planning. Nothing official, Jin told him each time. Just some independent shipping operations. It was technically true. Everything they were doing used civilian ships and equipment. No military vessels, no official weapons, no formal command structure. Just humans helping other humans. Dr. Li made an interesting discovery on the 2nd day. The Zephyrian ships are built for fighting organized fleets, he told Jin. Large formations, coordinated attacks, predictable patterns. They've never faced individual ships acting independently. What does that mean for us? Jin asked. It means chaos might be our best weapon, Li said. If we attack from random directions at random times with no coordination, their hive mind won't know how to respond. Sarah laughed. Good thing we're not coordinated anyway. She was right. Their fleet was a mess by military standards. Cargo ships, mining vessels, even a few passenger transports whose crews wanted to help. No 2 ships had the same weapons or modifications. No standardized communication systems. No unified command structure. It should have been a disaster. But as Jin watched his improvised fleet gather at the rally point, he realized something important. The chaos was not a bug in their plan. It was a feature. Chen brought his ship alongside Jin's borrowed transport. Through the viewports, Jin could see other vessels arriving. Each one was different, modified in its own way by crews who had never worked together before. This is insane, Chen said over the radio. We're about to attack the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy with cargo ships and mining equipment. Yes, Jin agreed. And that's exactly why it might work. On the far side of the system, long-range sensors showed the first Zephyrian scouts approaching. The real fleet would arrive in 2 days. All ships, Jin said into his radio. Remember, we're not trying to be a proper military force. We're trying to be unpredictable. Every ship fights its own way. No formations, no coordinated attacks, just cause as much chaos as possible. Copy that, came back a dozen different voices. Jin looked at his team gathered around the communication console, Dr. Li with his unofficial research, Sarah with her improvised weapons, Chen with his collection of crazy pilots. None of them were supposed to be here. The Galactic Council is still debating whether to form a committee to study the possibility of maybe taking action, Lee said, checking the official news feeds. Let them debate, Jin said. We've got work to do. Through his viewports, Jin could see the lights of his improvised fleet. Humans who had decided that sometimes the right thing to do was the wrong way to do it. Tomorrow, they would find out if chaos could defeat order. The Zephyrian fleet appeared like a dark cloud against the stars. Hundreds of black ships moving in perfect formation, their hulls absorbing light like they were made of space itself. Jin had seen the recordings from previous battles, but seeing them in person made his stomach tight with fear. They're beautiful, Chen said over the radio. In a terrifying way. Count them, Jin ordered. 237 ships, reported Sarah from her mining vessel. All moving in perfect synchronization. Jin's improvised fleet was spread across the system in no pattern at all. 15 ships total, each hiding behind asteroids or drifting with their engines cold. The Zephyrians probably did not even know they were there yet. Remember the plan, Jin said into his radio. There is no plan. Every ship attacks when and how they want. Confuse them. What if they destroy us all in the first minute? Asked one of the cargo pilots. Then we'll have lasted longer than the Galactic Fleet did at Centauri Prime, Jin replied. That was true. The official military forces had been wiped out in 43 minutes during their last major battle with the Zephyrians. Perfect military tactics against perfect military responses. The Zephyrians had won easily. Dr. Lee's voice came through Jin's personal communicator. I'm reading their formation patterns. They're arranged exactly like they were at Vega and Altair. Same spacing, same hierarchy, same predictable structure. Good, Jin said. That means they're expecting us to fight like everyone else. The Zephyrian fleet reached the outer edge of the Kepler system. Their sensors would be scanning for defensive fleets and military installations. What they found instead was nothing that made sense. Chen struck first. His cargo hauler came screaming out from behind an asteroid, not in any attack formation but simply flying straight at the nearest Zephyrian ship. The aliens probably thought he was running away in panic. Then Chen's ship exploded. It was not an accident. Sarah had rigged his cargo bay with mining charges and a timer. The explosion ripped through 3 Zephyrian ships that had moved in to investigate the strange behavior. That's for Vega Colony, Chen yelled over the radio from his escape pod. The Zephyrian response was immediate and predictable. They formed defensive patterns around the explosion site, scanning for the main attack force that should have been following up on the first strike. Instead, Sarah's mining ship attacked from the opposite direction. She had welded drilling equipment to her hull and used it to punch holes in 2 more Zephyrian vessels before disappearing back into the asteroid field. The aliens tried to surround her predicted escape route. Instead, 3 more cargo ships appeared from completely different angles, each attacking isolated targets before running away. Jin watched the battle through his sensors and smiled. The Zephyrian formation was coming apart. They kept trying to organize proper defensive responses, but there was nothing to respond to. No main fleet, no coordinated strategy, just individual ships causing chaos wherever they appeared. Their command frequency is going crazy, Lee reported. I think they're trying to coordinate a response, but they don't know what they're responding to. A Zephyrian cruiser moved toward Jin's position. He waited until it was close, then fired every mining torpedo Sarah had given him. The makeshift weapons were not designed for space combat, but they worked. The cruiser's hull cracked open like an egg. This is impossible, came a voice over the emergency galactic frequency. Admiral Vextar was monitoring the battle from his flagship 3 systems away. Civilian ships cannot engage Zephyrian forces and survive. Tell that to the Zephyrians, Jin replied, watching another enemy ship explode under attack from a converted passenger transport. The battle became a nightmare for the aliens. Every time they formed up to attack one human ship, 2 more would appear somewhere else. Every time they tried to predict where the next attack would come from, they were wrong. The Zephyrians had spent centuries perfecting responses to military tactics. They knew how to counter fleet formations and coordinated strategies. But they had never faced an enemy that had no formation and no strategy. "I'm out of torpedoes," reported one of the cargo pilots. "Then ram them," suggested another voice. "That's insane. This whole fight is insane. That's why it's working." As 3 human ships were destroyed in the first hour of combat. But they took 12 Zephyrian vessels with them. Those were impossible numbers by galactic military standards. Jin's ship shook as a Zephyrian fighter strafed his position. He spun his transport in a maneuver no military pilot would ever attempt, and came around behind the enemy. The mining laser Sarah had mounted on his hull was not meant for combat, but it cut through the fighter's engines. "Jin," Lee's voice was urgent over the radio. "The main Zephyrian fleet is breaking formation. They're pulling back." Jin could hardly believe it. The enemy had never retreated before. In every previous battle, they had either won completely or been destroyed completely. Retreat was not in their programming. "They don't know how to handle chaos," Lee continued. "Their hive mind is designed for logical responses to logical attacks. We're not being logical." The Zephyrian withdrawal was messy and confused. Ships bumped into each other as they tried to reform their perfect formations while being harassed by cargo vessels firing improvised weapons. Jin watched the alien fleet disappear into hyperspace and felt something he had not expected. Not victory, but surprise. They had actually done it. "All ships, report status," he called over the radio. The answers came back one by one. 7 human ships remained operational. 8 had been destroyed or disabled. But the Zephyrian attack on Kepler system had been stopped completely. "The colonies are safe," Sarah reported. "For now." Jin opened a channel to Admiral Vex Tar. "This is Captain Park. The Zephyrian threat to Kepler system has been neutralized." There was a long silence before the alien admiral responded. "Captain Park, what you have done is unprecedented and completely outside galactic military doctrine." "I know," Jin said. "It should not have worked." Jin looked at his surviving fleet. Damaged cargo ships and mining vessels held together with improvised repairs and stubborn determination. "I know that too." "We need to talk," the admiral said. As Jin's battered ship limped toward the nearest station, he realized something important. They had not just won a battle. They had proven that sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to ignore all the rules about how problems should be solved. Behind them, the colonies of Kepler system sent messages of gratitude. Ahead of them, the galaxy was about to discover that humans had their own way of doing things. The news spread across the galaxy faster than Jin had expected. Within hours, every major news network was reporting the same impossible story. A small group of humans had defeated a Zephyrian fleet using cargo ships and mining equipment. Jin sat in the medical bay of Kepler Station getting his burns treated when Ambassador Quinn found him. The senior human diplomat looked like she had not slept in days. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she asked, not bothering with greetings. "Stopped the Zephyrians from eating 3 colonies," Jin replied. "You're welcome." Quinn sat down heavily in the chair next to his medical bed. "The entire galaxy is panicking, Jin. Every government, every military, every trade federation, they're all asking the same question, which is, if humans can organize military operations without any official approval, what else might they do?" Jin had not thought about it that way. He had been focused on stopping the Zephyrians. But Quinn was right. Every alien government in the galaxy was built on the idea that actions needed official approval from proper authorities. "The Altarian Senate called an emergency session," Quinn continued. "They're debating whether to classify all humans as a potential security threat. That seems like an overreaction." "Is it?" Quinn pulled up a news feed on her tablet. "Look at this." The screen showed reports from across human space. Mining crews had started forming their own security forces without asking permission. Cargo pilots were organizing independent trade routes that ignored galactic regulations. Human colonies were making direct contact with alien worlds instead of going through official diplomatic channels. "It's spreading," Quinn said. "Your little unauthorized military operation has inspired humans everywhere to start taking independent action." Jin watched a report about human engineers who had fixed a broken Stargate without waiting for the proper repair permits. The job had taken them 2 days instead of the 6 months the bureaucracy required. "This is a good thing," Jin said. "Tell that to the Centauri Defense Council," Quinn replied. "They spent yesterday's meeting discussing whether humans need supervision for galactic security." Jin's medical scanner beeped, indicating his treatment was complete. He sat up and looked at Quinn seriously. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that alien governments are terrified. They've spent thousands of years building systems where everything requires approval, permits, committee reviews, and official authorization. Then you come along and prove that sometimes it's better to just do the right thing without asking permission." A new voice interrupted them. "She's correct to be worried." Admiral Vex Tar entered the medical bay. The Centauri officer looked tired and confused. "Admiral," Jin said. "That's complicated," Vex Tar replied. "Technically, you haven't broken any laws. No military vessels were used. No restricted weapons. No violation of territorial boundaries. Everything you did was legal, under galactic civil code. But," Quinn prompted, "but you've created a precedent that terrifies every government in known space," Vex Tar said. "The idea that individuals can take galactic-level action without official authority. It threatens the basic structure of interstellar society." Jin stood up from the medical bed. "So what happens now?" "Emergency councils are convening on 12 different worlds," Vex Tar explained. "Some want to ban humans from military activities entirely. Others want to recruit you to train their forces in irregular tactics. A few are seriously discussing whether humanity should be quarantined to prevent further disruption." "And what do you want?" Jin asked. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I want to understand how you did it. My fleet has been trying to stop the Zephyrians for 2 years. You did it in one afternoon, using cargo ships." Quinn's tablet chimed with an urgent message. She read it and her face went pale. "The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They want you there, Jin." "To explain myself?" "To answer charges of disrupting galactic security," Quinn said, "and to address complaints from 17 different governments about unauthorized human activities." Jin looked out the medical bay window at the lights of Kepler Station. 3 million people were alive because his team had ignored proper procedures. But apparently, that was a problem. "What kind of complaints?" he asked. Quinn scrolled through her messages. Human traders in the Vega sector started a new shipping company without getting approval from the Transport Guild. A human research team published xenobiology data without peer review from the Academic Council. Human engineers rebuilt a damaged space elevator on Tau Ceti without consulting the Infrastructure Committee. "All good things," Jin said. "All unauthorized things," Vex Tar corrected. "And that's what scares them." More messages poured into Quinn's tablet. Reports of human independence were coming in from across the galaxy. It was like Jin's example had given other humans permission to stop waiting for alien approval. "There's more," Quinn said, reading. "The Reptilian Empire has officially requested that all human ships be tracked. The Insectoid Collective wants humans to register any plans for independent action. And the Crystal Beings have suggested that human psychology be studied to determine if your species is inherently unstable." Quote, "Unstable?" Jin laughed. "We stopped a galactic threat while they held meetings." "That's exactly what they're afraid of," Vex Tar said. You've proven that their systems don't work as well as they thought. And worse, you've shown that their systems aren't necessary. A communication screen on the wall activated. The face of Counselor Thys appeared, looking more agitated than Jin had ever seen the reptilian diplomat. Captain Park, Thys said, you will report to the Galactic Council immediately. To receive thanks for saving Kepler system? Jin asked innocently. To explain why you have destabilized interstellar relations, Thys replied coldly. Your actions have created a crisis of authority throughout the galaxy. Good, Jin said. The connection cut off abruptly. Quinn looked at Jin with a mixture of admiration and terror. You realize you've accidentally started a revolution? Have I? Human independence is spreading everywhere, she said. People are taking action without asking permission. They're solving problems without waiting for committees to approve solutions. The entire structure of galactic government is being challenged. Vextar nodded grimly. And now every alien leader wants to know if this is how all humans think. If you can organize military operations overnight, what's to stop you from organizing other things? Jin thought about it. What was to stop them? Humans had been following alien rules and procedures because that was how things were done in the galaxy. But his team had proven that sometimes human methods worked better. I need to get to the council chambers, Jin said. I'll come with you, Quinn offered. So will I, Vextar added. This affects everyone now. As they left the medical bay, Jin realized that defeating the Zephyrians had been the easy part. Now he had to face something much more dangerous than alien invaders. He had to face alien bureaucrats who were angry that he had proven their system was broken. The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than Jin had ever seen it. Representatives from hundreds of worlds packed the seats, and every one of them looked angry. Jin walked to the center of the room, feeling like he was entering a court trial. Counselor Thys stood at the main podium. Captain Jin Park, the reptilian diplomat announced. You stand before this council, accused of destabilizing galactic order through unauthorized military action. I stopped a genocide, Jin replied simply. You acted without authority. The Altarian delegate sang angrily. You organized military operations using civilian resources. You ignored proper protocols and endangered galactic security. Jin looked around the chamber. Whose security? The 3 million people in Kepler system seem pretty secure now. Angry voices erupted from the alien delegates. Jin caught fragments of their complaints. Words like dangerous precedent, and unauthorized action, and threat to order filled the air. Admiral Vextar stood up from his seat. If I may address the council, he said. The room grew quiet. Captain Park's methods were unorthodox, but his results cannot be argued with. The Zephyrian threat has been neutralized by breaking every rule of interstellar military engagement, countered the insectoid representative. Her voice buzzed with irritation. What happens when other species decide they don't need approval for military action? Maybe they'll actually stop threats instead of talking about them, Jin said. The chamber erupted again. Counselor Thys called for order. But the aliens kept arguing among themselves. Ambassador Quinn stepped forward. Council members, I think we need to look at this practically. Human actions have solved a problem that formal channels couldn't address. Human actions have created chaos, Thys replied. We have reports of unauthorized activities throughout human space. Humans are taking independent action on trade, research, engineering, and now military operations. Where does it end? Where does it need to end? Jin asked. The question silenced the room. For a moment, hundreds of alien representatives just stared at him. Explain, Thys said carefully. Jin took a breath. Every problem we've solved in the last week was solved because humans stopped waiting for permission. We fixed broken infrastructure, opened new trade routes, shared research data, and stopped a galactic threat, all by ignoring your procedures. Our procedures maintain order, the crystal being representative said. Their voice sounded like wind chimes. Without proper authority, society collapses into anarchy. Does it? Jin asked. Or does it become more efficient? Dr. Lee Minjun entered the chamber carrying a datapad. This looked irritated. This is not the time for scientific reports. Actually, it is, Lee said. He activated the chamber's main display. Charts and graphs appeared on the big screen. I've been tracking human unauthorized activities across the galaxy. Want to know what I found? I canned. The aliens looked suspicious, but they stayed quiet. Human trade efficiency has increased 37% in the last week, Lee continued. Infrastructure repairs that normally take months are being completed in days. Research collaboration has tripled, and crime rates in human sectors have dropped because communities are solving problems themselves instead of waiting for official help. Impossible, the Altarian delegate said. The numbers don't lie, Lee replied. Human independence isn't creating chaos. It's creating results. Vextar stood again. I've been thinking about this problem, he said, and I believe there might be a solution that benefits everyone. Speak, This ordered. What if we officially recognize human independent action? The Admiral suggested. Create legal frameworks that allow for unauthorized emergency responses under specific circumstances? The chamber erupted in voices again. Some aliens seemed horrified by the idea, while others looked thoughtful. Jin raised his hand for quiet. I have a better idea. What? Tis asked, warily. What if you stop calling it unauthorized action and start calling it human action? Jin said. We're not trying to break your system. We're just working the way humans work. Quinn nodded enthusiastically. Jin's right. This isn't about humans rejecting authority. It's about humans having different approaches to problem solving. Chaotic approaches. The insectoid representative buzzed. Effective approaches, Vextar corrected. I've studied the battle recordings from Kepler's system. Human chaos defeated Zephyrian order because chaos was unpredictable. Sometimes, unpredictability is exactly what's needed. This was quiet for a long moment. What exactly are you proposing? Jin looked around the chamber. Human initiative zones, he said. Areas where humans are officially permitted to act independently. We solve problems our way. You solve problems your way. When emergency action is needed, you call us. When careful planning is needed, we call you. The aliens talked among themselves in dozens of different languages. Jin caught fragments of the discussions. Some were worried about precedent, others about losing control. But a few seemed interested in the practical benefits. There would need to be oversight, this said finally. Agreed, Jin replied. But oversight after action, not approval before action. Judge us by our results, not our methods. Ambassador Quinn stepped forward. The human government would be willing to negotiate formal agreements along these lines. And I would recommend military cooperation, Vextar added. Human irregular tactics could be valuable assets in future conflicts. The chamber fell quiet as the delegates considered the proposal. Jin could see aliens weighing the benefits against their fears. The Zephyrians are still out there, Lee pointed out quietly. And there will be other threats. The galaxy needs every advantage it can get. Counselor Thys looked around the chamber. All in favor of establishing a committee to study the possibility of human initiative zones? About half the aliens raised their appendages. All opposed? The other half responded. Motion fails, Thys announced. Jin felt his heart sink. Then, the Altarian delegate stood up. I move to skip the committee and implement human initiative zones immediately on a trial basis, she sang. Some problems are too urgent for proper procedures. Jin stared at her in surprise. She winked at him with one large eye. This time, 2/3 of the chamber voted in favor. Motion passes. This said, sounding shocked. Human initiative zones are hereby established on a trial basis. The chamber erupted in cheers from some sections and groans from others. Jin felt Quinn's hand on his shoulder. "Congratulations," she said. "You've just officially legalized human chaos." As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Vex's Tar approached Jin. "I have a question," the Admiral said. "What? When the next crisis comes, will you work with official forces? Or will you say, 'Fine, I'll do it myself again'?" Jin thought about it. "Depends on how urgent the crisis is." Vextar laughed. "That's what I was afraid you'd say." Outside the chamber windows, ships moved through space in orderly patterns, following proper procedures and established routes. But in the human initiative zones, things would be different. Jin smiled. Sometimes the best way to fix a broken system was to prove it could work differently. "So what's next?" Quinn asked. "Next," Jin said, "we find out what happens when chaos becomes official policy." Through the windows of Nexus Prime, the stars looked the same as always. But Jin knew the galaxy had changed. And that was going to make things very interesting.